I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to get excited. It seems like the owners are finally coming closer to where the players are. Are the players going to actually accept this deal? What deal are you talking about? Well, right before we recorded this show on Tuesday night, the owners have made a proposal that's pretty close to what the players are asking. Are they going to accept it? We'll talk about that. And then we'll also look at a couple of the stats from the 2021 season that may pique your interest. And we'll talk some more Astros on this edition of the Locked On Astros podcast.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Astros, your daily Astros podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric the Man Huysman and Brett H-Town Wheelhouse Chancey.
We are Locked On Houston Astros, and we hope that you join us for a daily Locked On Astros podcast. My name is Eric Huysman. You can find me on Twitter at Eric Talks Astros. Find the show at Locked On Astros, your team every day. Brett, where can you find you locked out at?
They can find me at H-Town Wheelhouse on Twitter and Instagram, and at Astros411 on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Always positive, praying for a solution to this madness, always Stros.
Alrighty, and thank you for making the Locked On Astros podcast your first listen every day. Whether it's on YouTube, keep on subscribing. If you haven't, just press that red button. It doesn't take a lot. Just press the red button, give us a like, and keep on listening to us on Apple, Spotify, Odyssey, wherever you listen to your podcast. Keep on listening to the Locked On Astros podcast. So right before the show, we had Bob Nightingale giving us some I guess daydreams that they may be coming close to a potential agreement, and everybody's saying, well, we're not going to get our hopes too high. I mean, we've seen this before. We've heard that people say, oh yeah, we're really, really close to a deal, but maybe this time, is it really, really going to be really a deal? But then we're all like, no, let's wait till somebody else. Then Evan Drellick kind of broke some reports later on too. So I don't know if this is legit, what's going on here. I don't know if what's really going to happen here. But there's a lot going on right here. But today was the deadline. Tuesday, March 8th was the deadline for that the owner set for a full 162 game season. And I tell you, both sides are treating this like that deadline. They are working into the midnight hour, or maybe not midnight hour, but they're working late into the day to try to get this working, because I think both sides really want a full season. You know, the owners really want a full 162 game season because that's more money in their pockets. And that's also the players, they want that too. So let's before we start talking about what was said, are you optimistic?
Am I optimistic? I don't know. I don't know what to think. Every time I get optimistic, my hopes and dreams are crushed. Every time I'm pessimistic about it and I think things are going terrible, I get this ray of sunshine like a Bob Nightingale or Evan Drellich or Ken Rosenthal. It is such a back and forth, up and down type of thing. Ken Rosenthal made it evident tonight in a tweet that I saw right before we went on the show that him and Evan Drellich, and actually he named Evan Drellich, is keeping up with all of the details of the MLB's proposal. And in that proposal, the very first things that they list and are things that we've talked about, Eric, is they have gone to luxury tax thresholds of 230, 232, 236, 240, and 242 million. The pre-arbitration pool is at 40 million, which gives them a $45 million chasm to build. The pool does count against the CBT, 1.3 million per team. And then the minimum salary starts at 700,000, goes up to 770,000 at the end of these 5 years. So that's one of the first details. And I know you've got some other details that he proposed, because there are a lot of details in this MLB proposal to be considered. And that's why it's taken so long.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that's got to last for the next 5 years. So going back to Bob Nightingale's tweet from earlier, he said progress and compromises on both sides are being made in today's MLB negotiations. Cautionary news. It's a similar sentiment to of a week ago. We'll see if it culminates in a new CBA deal in the next 24 hours. And then he later on he said MLB's written proposal has been submitted to the union. Everything remained fluid as they negotiate deep into the night. Like you said, the luxury tax is 230 million. That escalates to 242 million. And the big thing is, I think the minimum salary is getting closer to what the players wanted, the 700,000. That could
Hmm.
escalate to about 770,000.
Right.
The pre-arbitration pool is a what do you call it? A 400 40 million, but that's going to stick. It's not going to fluctuate. It's going to just it's going to be stagnant. It's just going to be 40 million per year. It's not going to
Yeah.
raise.
Yeah, and that's yeah, and like I said, that is 45 million away from what the
Yeah.
players actually and the players have come down. They won like 115 million, but at the end of the day, it's just it's like what are they going to do? But there are other parts to this.
Yeah.
Another major part. Evan Drellich says that MLB is tying the removal of the qualifying offer to instituting an international draft. So, I mean, there are a lot of moving parts and a lot of cogs in this that maybe the average fan probably doesn't understand. And I think the more you understand that there's all these crazy like infinite details, it's maybe easier to stomach the process and why it's so difficult, right?
Yeah. So instead of doing an international signing period, you would have an international draft.
That's what it's saying. Yeah, it's saying it's removing the qualifying offer to instituting an international draft. So I assume that's what that means.
Yeah. So the threshold would go from 230 to 232, 236, 240, 242. So that's more what the players are wanting. I know that they were wanting closer to 256 towards, I think at the beginning, they were wanting 253 or 256, but they've got to kind of uh, give some room. They've got to meet halfway in a way.
So why are the players wanting a higher CBT? Like what is the reasoning behind that? I think a lot of people are asking
Players
that, and we need to answer them. So I don't
Because, the players would get a higher salary, they get more
exactly.
money, and the salaries are already escalating anyway, and this is a way for because right now, like Carlos Correa, teams are like, "Dude, we would love to have you on our team, but unfortunately, we only have this much room in our CBT, and you want this much, so it's hard to
So
squeeze you in."
Right. So players like Carlos Correa who are looking for that big payday would benefit from a higher CBT. And
Right,
that's why I wanted to explain that because, like I said, I don't think everybody has followed. I think people are getting tired of the topic. And so they're probably kind of tuning it out. But we know that they're still tuning into Lock On Astros. And so that's why we want to give y'all good, solid, comprehensive information rather
right.
than just rattling off a bunch of numbers and explaining that to you.
Yeah, so something else that we can kind of address with the Carlos Correa situation is what if you do sign Carlos Correa and you do go over the luxury tax threshold? What would happen? And so I know that Ken Rosenthal and Evan Drellich reported that. So before we do that, let's talk a little bit about Tim Tebow.
Yeah, so I want to ask you this. Are you ready to discover your purpose and leave an impact wherever you go? Mission Possible, written and read by New York Times bestselling author and athlete Tim Tebow, encourages you to find your inspiration, pursue your purpose, and create a life for yourself that counts. Ignite a new spark in your life through the new inspirational listen. Mission Possible by Tim Tebow is available everywhere audiobooks are sold.
All righty, so go out and get that book. And Tim Tebow, he's awesome. So, speaking about awesome, we have awesome shortstop. Well, we had an awesome shortstop in Carlos Correa. He's a free agent right now, but every Astros fans would love him to come back to Houston. But unfortunately, we don't know if that's going to happen. Now, if the CBT goes from 210 to 230, that's an extra 20 million that the Astros have in wiggle room. So let's say that I think by my luck, what I looked at last time, I think we had 20 million of wiggle room, and now
Yeah.
we have another 20 million. So that's 40 million. Do you really blow it all on Carlos Correa? That's a question that James Click and Jim Crane have to say. But what if they do and they still go out and get another reliever or somebody else and they go over the luxury tax threshold? What's going to happen? So right now, MLB already has two levels of the surcharges. They have a first surcharge and a second surcharge. So you pay the taxes, and I believe the taxes go to the lower market teams, something like that. But what a big issue that's kind of sticking, I don't know which side is kind of, I think it's the players that are having issues with this. But if you are one of these teams, aka the Dodgers, the Yankees, or whatever team that continually like to overspend, go past the luxury tax threshold, they want to add a third level that's going to be even more. It's really meant to. You need to stop right now, young man. You need to stop spending over the luxury tax threshold, or else. And I think that's a big sticking point. And so the players are like, well, teams are already not wanting to go over that threshold. And if you're going to make it even worse or worse or worser for them to spend over that, then they're not going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to pay that fine, and especially if teams are losing more revenue now because the players are getting more, they're not going to want to give up more on that end as well. And so that's what makes it difficult. And they they say it's not about money. Quit telling us it's not about money, because
Ooh.
every bit of the issues that we are having are 100% about money. It is all about the money. It is money talks, and you know what walks. And money is the name of the game. And again, need I remind the owners, they wouldn't have these. Now, maybe they would have done a venture somewhere else in another company, another business, but they wouldn't have been making their money in baseball if they didn't have the players that they have. I mean, in a market where the Detroit Tigers makes $3.8 billion, dollars, a bottom of the barrel team, you can't tell me that there's not enough money. I know it's finite. I know it's not never ending. I know it doesn't grow on trees, but more of this revenue, I think, deserves to go to the players because of the value they bring to the team. Not because they deserve the money that someone else made, but because of the value. It's almost like a reward. Hey, thank you for being Mike Trout. Thank you for being Carlos Correa. You know what I'm saying? Thank you for being Jorge Soler. I mean, just these random guys that are heroes in baseball. I think they deserve some of that.
Yeah. So Evan Drellick just tweeted out that the third CBT surcharge would be 60 million above the base level in a given year. So let's just say that the players accept this offer and the base salary in 2022 is 230 million. So the first surcharge would be 250 million. Then the second level would be 270 million, and the new third level would be 290 million.
So
So if you go past
basically,
that 290 million, you're
yeah.
you're 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 screwed.
So basically, at the first threshold of 250 million, they would tack on a $20 million surcharge. So that's 270. At the second one, they would add 40 million. So you would get you would have a 20 you would have a
Well, I
270
don't know if
plus
that's what
million.
it's good. It's gonna be a certain percentage of that. I
What
don't I don't know if that's exactly what they mean, but maybe.
Well, but that's no, that's literally what it's saying. It's saying the second is a $40 million over what, so they will be charged 40 million over whatever their, so if their
Oh, okay. I see
payroll
what you're
is
saying.
200, yeah, if their payroll is 207, between 270 and 290 million, they will be charged $40 million over. They will have to pay that. And they may, the third rank, when they get to 290, that means their payroll will go from 290 to 350 million. That's a 60, but it's basically a tax. It's basically a penalty that they're paying to go to that next level. And so but MLB is proposing that because they want the players to know, yes, we're serious about spending money, but we are not so serious about spending money that we're willing to sell everything. And, bottom line is this, Eric, salaries are inflated. I mean, salaries in sports across the board are inflated. Did you see what Aaron Rodgers got paid today by the Green Bay Packers? Did you see his contract?
No, I know it's ridiculous.
4 years, $200 million. He's
4
getting 4 years. I'm not lying. He's getting $50 million a year for the next 4 years.
for discount double check guy.
Discount double check Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay Packers. Yes. So here's the thing. The reality is you can't keep spending like this. It at some point has to stop. And I think that's what the owners are probably trying to project in the future. If salaries continue to escalate, we don't have this pool of never ending funds to keep paying you. So, in order to keep things under control so that y'all can keep being employed and we can keep these teams open, we have to cap this with a reasonable number so that we still spend the money, but we don't spend so much that we're having to like cut our arms and our legs off just to pay for the team.
Yeah, so there's a lot more to this. The details. I know this could all go to wayside if the players decide to nix it. So if you're listening tomorrow and the players have said, then
Well,
it's still a good way to see where the owners are because the owners have made some concessions here, and we're not talking about hot dogs and popcorn. They've made some concessions here.
well,
So
so here's the deal. Here are some other minor details involved, okay? And I'll just run through, 4 or 5 of them. Players can be optioned max 5 times before being exposed to waivers, okay? Small markets can pick in draft lottery for 2 straight years before sliding to the 10th pick. Large markets can pick only 1 year in lottery before the 10th, okay? Also on service time, the top 2 Rookie of the Year vote getters get a full year of service, and a team that brings up a player for opening day can net 3 draft picks over time, 1 pick per year, if that player does well in voting. So, I mean, there are a lot of details in here. And I think I'm realizing more and more how many details are actually involved because if you don't get down into the nitty gritty, if you don't get into the weeds of it all, you just think, millionaires versus billionaires. It's hyperbole. It's just them. I say that a lot. It's about money. It is. But there are so many details involved in that money. What is the revenue stream? What do they consider revenue? How much of that deserves to go to the players? How much of that do the owners deserve to get? And it's just a difficult process. This is why fans, though, across the board, Eric, are united in saying, why didn't you start these discussions back in December? Why did you wait until the last minute? And I think the overall sentiment is the owners tried to back the players' union into a corner, divide the players' union, and they tried to divide and conquer. And they've actually unified the union. And I think it backfired.
all right. According to John Heyman, MLB is also seeking to add a fourth tier to the CBT threshold for the high spending teams. And of all people, Steve Cohen is okay with this. He says, as long as it's good for baseball, I'll pay that tax and I'm going to
Because
keep
he's
on.
3 times richer than the second richest man in baseball. Of course, he's okay with it. He's this dude. If anybody's got unlimited funds close to it, it's Stephen Cohen. He
Yeah.
could buy the Yankees and the Mets both at the same time and still be a billionaire.
Yeah, he said that this will only affect the Mets and the Dodgers in 2022 if there is a fourth tier added, so that nobody like the Astros are probably not going to get to that. I mean, I'm sure Jim Crane would. He always likes to sit at that like underneath that luxury tax threshold, and so if it goes up, he'll be like, okay, I can spend a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more.
But I
Oh,
think if it
let's stop right here.
But I think if it gets too high, I don't think Crane will do that. Crane is a businessman. Crane has accumulated billions. And that is another aspect that I keep having thrown at me when I'm discussing this is these billionaires have worked their entire life to make these fortunes. And it really isn't anybody else's place to tell them how and where to spend their money. I'm just trying to give good reasons why it makes sense to give the players a larger share because of the value they bring to the said business that they own in Major League Baseball.
So from Jason Stark, I often hear fans say, "What's the big deal about the second and third tax tiers if no teams ever pay them?" The reason is the penalties get so high and multiply, virtually no team would exceed them for any player. That's the reason why they exist. Like I was kind of saying earlier. So a fourth tier would be the Steve Cohen tier. All
Exactly.
the
There you
focus
go.
is on him. So why can't he buy multiple teams so he's not the richest guy out there? So that's just kind of funny that
I mean,
that's
he could probably
primary
buy the
focus.
Pirates. He could probably buy the Pirates, the Royals. I mean, he could buy 4 or 5 teams. You know what I'm saying?
Why
But
can't he just buy teams like a bunch of boxes of Built Bars? Just keep on buying all the Built Bars,
dude,
all the teams. Steve Cohen, you got the
well,
money.
they'd be called Cohen bars probably. But you know what? Built Bar, they're not into that because Built Bar is for the average everyday guy and girl like me, like just those of us trying to live a healthy lifestyle. And let me tell you something. They just came out with a flavor to help celebrate St. Patrick's Day coming up. This whole shamrock flavor that they come out with. We just ordered a box today and I'm so excited about getting them. But what I want to talk to you today about are Built Puffs. It's the first protein infused marshmallow. It's marshmallowy, it's fluffy, it's amazing, and it's got 17 to 19 grams of protein. It doesn't have a ton of sugar, maybe 4 to 5 grams, maybe 130 to 160 calories at most. Doesn't have but 4 or 5 carbs. So if you're on one of these like low carb diets, it works. If you're just trying to eat right, okay, grab a Built Bar. They're yummy, they're delicious, the flavors are decadent, and again, wrapped in 100% chocolate. So your stomach thinks you're eating a candy bar, which you are, but it's really a protein bar or a protein puff, like we like to say. Mint brownie, coconut almond, and new these white chocolate shamrock, white chocolate cookies and cream, so many more flavors. So go to built.com and use the promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. You can use that code more than once. My wife texted me today. What is the locked on code? I want to order the new Shamrock. I sent it to her. I was like, LOCKED 15. We got 15% off. The box is on its way. Build.com, the best bar in the biz.
Alrighty, what about rockauto.com?
RockAuto.com. With the ever increasing numbers of makes and models, it's impossible to go to the local chain store and find all the parts you need. So why endure often pointless and seemingly intimidating questioning, asking you what parts or what Z model you have or whatever they're going to ask you? Go to rockauto.com. It's easy to access. You can whip out your phone like I have here. If you're watching on YouTube, you can go to your computer and just type in rockauto.com. It's a family owned business. They've been for over 20 years. And why spend 30, 50, sometimes 100% more when you can get the same parts for a cheaper price and have a greater variety? The auto parts store are going to upcharge you because you're not a mechanic. They're only going to have 1 or 2 options and they're not going to have the prices you want. And in these day and times, we know with raising gas prices and everything else, we need to fix our cars and do it efficiently, do it economically. And heck, you can't even go to the store if your car is broken and it's a repair that can be made in your driveway. Go to rockauto.com, type in your make and model, your part. It will be delivered to your front doorstep. So let me tell you what I need you to do. When you go to rockauto.com and find the parts that you need for your car or truck or van, whatever it is you drive, write locked on in there. How did you hear about us box? So that they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com.
All right. I'm kind of looking at this article just came out by Astro Anthony Castro Vince, and it's talking a
Okay.
little bit about the international draft. And I'm not going to have as much time to kind of devour this as I should. But the part of the reason why the international draft is coming out is they feel like the talent is not being spread as it should. Like we see the teams like the Astros and
The Astros
the
and the White Sox are
White
basically
Sox getting
cornering the
all the
Cuban
Cuban,
market,
yeah.
and they don't like it.
And they also said that that Latin American players as young as 12 to 14 have been made known to make verbal commitment to clubs early, even though they can't officially sign with the team
Right,
until they're
right. They kind
16.
of like promise them, hey,
Yeah.
when I'm of age, I'll sign with you. Right.
And also, the pressure to impress at a young age has also increased, has caused them to use performance enhancing drugs. And just
So a draft is going to eliminate all these problems.
Well, what they're doing is they said the international draft would have more fairly allotment talent among more clubs and reduce abuses in some international markets.
Okay, I see. That's the thing. I don't really know enough about that to talk intelligibly about that. I'll just kind of take their word for it. Okay. You
So
know,
they're saying that there would be a 20-round draft with more than 600 selections, regular picks plus competitive balance selections, which guaranteed clubs cannot pass on a selection. So it's not like a Rule 5 draft where you can say, I pass. You have to draft somebody.
y- yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know enough about the system and about the abuse of the system to really. I just know whatever the Astros are doing, it works, and I like what they have. So I don't see the point of changing it.
All right, I'm gonna continue. So the first pick would be worth about 5.25 million. This would ensure more money in aggregate to the 600 draft picks that then was spent on the 1,000 international players in the last full signing period prior to COVID-19. So they're thinking that if you do a draft style, then more players will get more signing bonuses versus just the international signing period. Because
Okay.
what typically happens is you sign the big boys to the like the Robert and Lewis Robert and all the big guys, and then you don't have that much money to sign all the other guys. But if you have allotted salary or a signing bonus for each player, then you can only sign them for that, and then you have more money to spread around for other stuff. So
So my only question would be is if Japan's shelling out more and more money for 'cause that's where like a lot of Cuban players are starting to go, and they see
uh,
that and they have more money, you might kind of cut your nose off to spite your face, and that might open the
Well,
market for
that may be a
for
reason
Japan
why
to jump them.
that may be a reason why the Players Association says no. So,
Yeah, I don't know. I look, hey, um, I'm all about whatever kid out there, whether he's from Venezuela, Puerto Rico, the Dominican, Cuba, Mexico, whatever Latin American country, whatever Australia, wherever they come from, should have an opportunity to make it in the big leagues. Whatever system works best for the players and to get them here safely where they're not abused, where they're not taken advantage of, where they don't
mm,
get these rogue agents down in Cuba who basically take them, send them to Haiti, and then don't ever pay them, and they don't ever make it to the States. If they can avoid those things and they can clean that aspect of it, I'm all for it. But like I said, I don't really know enough about it to really speak on it.
let
What?
me finish.
Okay.
So, basically, what they've also said is that you can actually trade draft picks. So if you want to trade your first round pick for a second round pick and the third round pick, you're welcome to do that. And I'm sure when you do that, you can actually acquire the signing bonus allotment as well. And also, it's not going to be based on your record. What they're going to do is they said each club be randomly assigned to a group of 6 clubs, and each group would then rotate through the draft order over a 5-year period. So the draft order would not be tied to team record. Rather, clubs would have equal access to international draft talent over the life of the CBA. So the Astros, if they're in a group, they could have the first 6 picks, or they can be the last 6 picks of each round. So it just kind of varies depending on the round. So they have 3 weeks after the draft to sign, and they also they'll also, if let's say that a team signs somebody that's not from your traditional Venezuela, Dominican Republic, Cuba. Um, let's say you sign a player from, I don't know, what's a non-traditional country, maybe, I don't know,
Australia,
Australia.
Canada, I don't know.
Yeah. So, in effort to grow the game, clubs will receive supplemental selections for drafting and signing players from non-traditional international baseball countries. So you get more picks if you sign somebody from a non-traditional place. So this is just something that that they're talking about, and this is something that they're proposing to the players. And so instead of doing instead of doing the qualifying offer, if you lose a free agent, maybe you get extra international pick. Maybe that's what they're talking about when they're saying that. So I'm actually for that. I think that that'll be a better way to make it a little more fair and even, because it seems like right now it's who you know who has the most money to spend on these players, and it's really rather luck. Like
Well,
it's
it's also what connections you make,
yeah.
and
That's
we
why I
got to
said who you know.
realize, yeah, Jeff. I mean, and I think clubs are awarded handsomely for that. Jeff Lunau, as much as he's maligned and hated by Major League Baseball, and even Four Star Telegram people are blaming this whole strike on him, because they're morons when they write stuff like this. He is a big reason why the Houston Astros have the place they have in the Dominican, in various countries like Cuba, because they have guys like Yuli Gurriel. They go out and they sign these players. They have these kids that have made a name for themselves. The Jose Urquides, like Phil Selig mentioned, the Astros have a record 21 Cuban players on their roster. And I think it's because of the system we have. Teams, I think, need to be more aggressive internationally if they want more players, and they need to do more PR as a team in order to do that. I don't know that I'm for this because, like I said, I don't really know enough about this whole system and what it would look like and what it would do to baseball in general. It sounds on the surface like a good thing, but like I said, there's so many things with this whole negotiation, which really kind of makes my brain hurt, to be honest. And it really makes me miss baseball. It really makes me think of what might have been, or like 2021. What are some really cool things that happened in 2021, statistically with the Houston Astros? Because Eric, the Astros lost Lance McCullers Jr. They didn't have Jake Myers. They were banged up. The Braves were banged up. I mean, any team can go into a series and lose and make excuses. The Astros didn't make excuses, but Bregman literally was playing with one hand. And so you forget sometimes what happened in that playoff run. And let me tell you, they had what was called two out magic in 2021. Okay, the Astros scored 87 runs in the postseason. 50 of those runs came with two outs in the inning, which is the second most in a single postseason in MLB history. According to MLB Network, only last year's Dodgers 59 runs scored more two-out runs in a single postseason than this past year's Houston Astros. And so that's a huge thing. When you look back on a season where you lost kind of convincingly to a team that wasn't supposed to win, it's hard to see the positive things. But since I'm always positive, always Stros here, someone who came up big. And these stats are actually via the Astros MLB press box site. Okay, and this is straight from the Astros. Jose Altuve hit 5 home runs this postseason and now has 23 career postseason homers, which ranks second all time in MLB history. He also ranks third in postseason history for runs with 70, tied fifth for extra base hits with 38, and eighth in RBIs with 49. The only person in front of him is Manny Ramirez. The other two people behind him are Yankees, Bernie Williams with 22 and Derek Jeter with 20. But what is awesome about this record, Eric, is with 23 home runs, Altuve did it in 77 games. Manny Ramirez, 111, Bernie Williams, 121, Derek Jeter, 158. So he did it in almost half the games that they did. And I know you and I both watched the playoffs very, very closely. This was a fun team to watch. This when we went up against the White Sox. I mean, We took care of business. There was that one game where the White Sox had our number, but we really took care of business. That's right. The whole against the Red Sox, Carlos
Oh, that was Red
Correa.
Sox? Okay, yeah, that's right.
That was the Red Sox with Carlos Correa saying it is my time. And
Right.
I actually went back, and the Astros were showing highlights on Facebook of last year's games, and I watched the last, like, that whole ninth inning where they basically it was 2-2, and the Astros just kept getting hits and scoring runs, and the life was just sucked out of Fenway Park. What was what were some of the things you remember from last season? Was it the performance of, like, Yuli Gurriel? I mean, his Gold Glove year. Was it Carlos Correa's defense? What are some things that you can kind of think of that maybe off the top of your head, maybe I could throw some stats at you of what they did?
Just Kyle Tucker, just what he
Yeah.
did his coming out party. I would just say, just Luis Garcia continuing what he did, and
Yes.
just overall, I guess, like Jake Myers just kind of coming out of nowhere, and for that matter, Chaz McCormick in a way coming out of nowhere, because this guy that made the postseason roster
Yeah.
as a pinch runner the year before, and didn't see any playing time, and then he was the starting center fielder. No, he wasn't. Or did he start? I don't know if he started, but he was on the opening day roster of the 2021 season.
Yeah.
So
No, that was Miles Straw started out as a
yeah,
starter, I
that's
believe.
right.
Yeah, so, and we almost forgot about him because of the way it happened when he got traded. We were surprised. But you
Right.
had mentioned Kyle Tucker. So get this, Eric. Kyle Tucker led all players in RBIs this postseason with 15. All players, not just the Astros.
Right.
His RBI total ranks second in club history for a single season, trailing only
Carlos
Carlos
Beltran.
Correa.
Oh,
No, Carlos Correa. Now this is for his RBIs. He posted 17 RBIs in 13 postseason games in 2020. Tucker became the second player in MLB history to post 8 extra base hits, 5 steals, and 15 RBIs in a single postseason, joining Melvin Upton Jr. of the '08 Rays. You mentioned guys like Luis Garcia. Luis Garcia, Eric, had a phenomenal year, and I know he kind of hit some hiccups kind of towards the end, but he was a rookie, and for what he did, for how he performed on the mound, it was a great thing to see. Luis Garcia go out there and compete and scratch and claw every win, because it seemed like more times than not he was on. I mean, he was 11-8 with a 3.30 ERA, and he led all American League rookie pitchers with a 3 WAR, 11 wins, 155 innings, and 167 strikeouts. His strikeout total was the second highest by a rookie in franchise history, trailing only Tom Griffin in 1969. So that's been a long time, and he's the eighth rookie in Astros history to post an 11-win season, and the first since Colin McHugh also won 11 games for the Astros in 2014. And I'm just scratching the surface of the great things that happen. That's what we have to realize, why this game is so great. No matter what happens, win or lose, the Astros always doing great things on the field. We just hope that they get things wrapped up. I know we've got a little extended here, and this is kind of a long show, but we wanted to bring you some Astros stuff because this is Locked On Astros. We're your team every day.
yeah, and guys, make sure you check out the Sully over at the Locked On MLB podcast, and check out Lindsay over at the Locked On MLB Prospects. They both do a great job covering MLB and the prospects, and they're on YouTube. And just like the Locked On Astros podcast, go check them out. Go subscribe to them, and listen to them on Apple, Odyssey, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. Check them out as well. And we'll be back. Hopefully, there's some big news overnight or in the morning, and we'll hear what's going on about the season, if there's a season coming on, a full season or not. But that's all we got for this edition of the Locked On Astros. I'm Eric Huysman. He's Brett Chancey, and Go Astros. Let's end this lockout.